Hello again. Today I'd like to talk about this meaning of introversion and extraversion in cognitive functions. As introverted functions as suppressed or inhibited versions of their extroverted counterparts. For instance, NI is actually any suppressed any. So NI is any taken under control. And NI is actually is the only difference between an anidom and anidom is the anidom has learned to control the any, so he keeps a tight lid on the any impulses, for instance. So whatever an anidom behavior an anidom exhibits on the outside is exhibited by an anidom in his internal world, so it does not is only the impulses that the anidom chooses to take out into the external world can get out of this control. So an anidom must be seen multiple courses of action or paths to follow in the external world, and he or she must be impulsively jumping from one course of action to the other without fully exhausting any of them. And an anidom, on the other hand, sees multiple courses of action but chooses only one viable path among these and follows that path to the end. And it's very hard for an anidom to leave the chosen path and choose another one. So that means that an anidom can specialize in one or a number of singular topics, whereas an anidom must be a jack of all trades, frantically starting multiple projects and gaining some superficial knowledge about them, and then gets bored with them and starts another project or another initiative. So anidoms must have a broader knowledge about multiple subjects, but with a lesser depth than that of an anidom. An anidom must have a certain number of knowledge on a certain number of topics, but with a deeper understanding of them. So anidom's expertise is on the horizontal plane, whereas an anidom's expertise on the vertical plane. So the same principle can be applied to all extroverted and introverted functions. And an anidom to grow as an you, an idol must cultivate more than, must increase his or her interest and try to avoid being stuck in just one or two courses of action or paths or interests to follow. The same principle might be applied to all extroverted interfunctions and introverted functions, as I said. So if you consider extroverted sensing as an abundance of physical impulses like aggression, hunger, need for sensory gratification, promiscuity or high libido, and SI Dom in contrast must be someone who has learned to control his or her SE impulses. So the difference between an SE Dom and an SI Dom is that the SI Dom is keeping his or her SE impulses in check, whereas the SE Dom cannot do that, or have never felt the need to keep them in check, because he or she has been able to get away with those SE impulses in life. So that also means that an SI Dom has all these bottled up physical impulses waiting to be unleashed inside of him or her. And similarly, an idol has bottled up crazy ideas, multiple crazy ideas inside his or her head. And these ideas cannot, or these impulses in both types, the anidom and SIdom, cannot get out because that's the nature of the anidom and SIdom. And I think after some time it becomes like some kind of bottled up excess energy or infection or some kind of pus inside the anidom or SIdom's body. And I guess anidoms need an anidom partner, and SIdoms need an SIdom partner who can extract those impulses from the anidom and SIdom respectively and give them some kind of release and relief. On the other hand, the anidom and SIdom can learn to keep their impulses in check by interacting with the anidom. So in the long term, I would expect them to become more like each other. So anidom would learn to use his shadow any function, and anidom would learn to use her or his shadow ni function, which would make them resemble each other in the long term. So if you consider anidom like a tightened muscle, then anidom can use shadow any by relaxing the same muscle. So it's actually, be it introverted or extroverted, it's actually the same muscle, intuition, but any is using that same muscle in relaxed form, whereas the NI dome using the same muscle in the flexed or tightened form. So both they just need to use the muscle in the other form, both of them. And to grow as individuals, I think NI domes need to interact with NE domes and vice versa. In that respect, NI dome or NSI dome would resemble a dormant volcano. And then NE dome or NSI dome, an erupting volcano. So the same can be applied to TE and TI. The TI dome can learn to act like a TE dome by learning and practicing to express his ideas, internal ideas to the external world, and they can learn it by interacting with the TE domes. FI, and the same applies to FI and FE, and FI dome can learn to be more compassionate, more caring about other people's feelings by interacting with FE domes, and FE domes can learn to care more about give more importance to their own feelings by interacting with FI domes. So these are like skills in our role-playing computer game that and there are masters of certain skills. You can learn them from the masters, but not all of us are masters of some skills and do poorly in other skills, I mean cognitive functions. I think the functions are conscious, normal, 4 functions. We develop them in their order in the stack. So we do not need to develop our dominant function that much because it is inherent. The auxiliary, I think we must be learning it from our family unit. But then the tertiary develops in between 20s and 30s, and the inferior, I guess, from 30s till 50s or so on. And I guess that mechanism drives us to see people that we can develop, with whom we can develop our next function in the order in line. So for instance, in my 20s and 30s, I guess I had a college friend from college that I used to see quite often, and I guess he was an INTP. He's an INTP, I believe, and my interactions with him, I guess, helped me develop my TI, due to which I believe it manifested as my enjoying my time with him. So I guess he might be an ENTJ though. He can sometimes act like an ENTJ. Actually, he was more like an INTP until his 30s, and suddenly he exhibited this change of personality, and he became more extroverted, more. Or, no, I am wrong. I think he was an ENTJ. He has always been an ENTJ, and I guess he finished developing his tertiary SE when he was 35 years old. But in the meantime, from 20s to 35, I was able to get along with him because he was using his auxiliary, and I think he was learning, practicing his NI over me, through me, and I think I was practicing my tertiary TI through his shadow TI, because he was a TE DOM. He could also use to a certain fraction of his TE, his TI, shadow TI function, and I was learning TI from him, and he was learning NI from me. But after 35, he has finished developing his SE, and he started using his tertiary SE quite capably, which irritated me, and I started to interact with him like as if he was an, I guess, INTJ, but he did not like that. I think because my SE is not that developed, I think he started seeing me as childish, because he was referring to his old self as childish. So we grew apart. And I am trying to develop my SE, but it's very hard. Even if I am correct, if he is really an ENTJ, even his tertiary SE is irritating me. I can't even tolerate it, because I think this SE thing has something to do with testosterone levels in the body of the individual. So someone with dominant SE, the dominant SE type, I believe, must have quite a high amount of testosterone levels, which exhibits itself in aggressive, impulsive, and promiscuous behavior, which results in a high libido. So if I do not have that high libido myself, but I have it. But usually I get into this horny, high libido mode once in every 2 weeks or so, and it's a very alien concept for me. I become something like a beast. That, for instance, when I'm in that mode and when I'm outside, every woman I see, I check for sexual compatibility and sexual opportunity. I think that it becomes evident in my eyes because the women understand that I am in that mode. Some like it, some are attracted to it, some are intimidated by it, by that look in my eyes. I think that's the so-called male gaze, and I have to masturbate to get out of that mode because I do not have a sexual partner. And I think I need to have a partner who does not have SE but SI. So to be able to not be irritated by my heightened SE impulses. So I think that mode that I get into every 2 weeks, I think that's how SE DOMs live all the time. So they must be this embodiment of physical impulses and physical hunger for food, for sex. So that must be their normal mode of functioning. So they must be always on the lookout for opportunities to satisfy these hunger inside them, for food, for material things, for sexual gratification, for sensory pleasures. But when both types have SE, I think that becomes a recipe for conflict, I guess, because both want to dominate, and depending on the strength of their SE function, I think if these two SE types were to get into some kind of sexual interaction, I think that would turn into a sadomasochistic way of encounter. The one with the high SE would become a sadist, and the one with the low SE would become a masochist. I can observe this tendency in me because I am drawn to ISTP women, and if I had some interactions with ISTP women in the past, which did not turn into sexual encounters, but they had this effect on me that I desired to be dominated, sexually dominated by them, but that would be a recipe for disaster for me, because if I were to get in a long-term relationship with them, with ISTP women, like marriage, I think they would play me like a puppet, and it would be a codependent relationship for me. I would be the codependent, and they would be the sadistic or narcissistic partner in the relationship. This inferior SE function in me exhibits itself in, like I said, uncontrollable sexual urges and impulses once every 2 weeks or so. And unfortunately, as I do not have a partner, I had to delve deeper into porn on internet, especially in certain fetishes, darker fetishes, like being humiliated, being submissive, etc. And I don't know why, but it gives masturbating to fantasizing to those kind of humiliation scenarios give me a certain sexual high, which is quite different, and which is very different from the gratification I get, pleasure I get masturbating without fantasizing. This is masturbation to humiliation fantasies. For me, has this drug-like effect on my brain, and I think whenever I am low in external FE energy, I think these external functions of each type designate the connections each type has with the external world, and which kind of layers from which layers, and it signifies the layers that they gain energy and pleasure from. So whenever I am low in FE feedback, like there aren't any people showing compassion or true understanding or love, acceptance for me around me, then I think my body switches into SE to feel better about myself. So it starts craving for SE nurturing, SE feedback, which could be sports, food, and sexual interaction. In that sense, and ESTPs, for instance, ESTPs must be gaining their primary energy from sensory gratification, and if they cannot find that, they should be seeking, in later ages, they should be seeking love, compassion, understanding from people. So that would mean they would try to cultivate some social causes that they can gather this energy. I think there is a concept of narcissistic supply, ego supply. I think this can explain that mechanism. We are getting our ego supplies, or psyche. Our psyche is getting these supplies from the external world and also from the internal world. So we all have internal and external supplies of feeling good about ourselves, of feelings of well-being. So I don't know how this would play for other types. For instance, for ENFJ, then ENFJ's primary nourishment would be surrounding himself or herself with people that would give him or her positive feedback about the ENFJ, which I guess might explain why ENFJs might turn into cult leaders or political leaders, and ESFJs might turn into queen bees, I guess. or are claimed with ESTPs, I don't know. And if that fails, would that mean then ENFJ would resort to, if he or she cannot find any FE feedback, would that mean he or she would resort to seeking out SE feedback, SE nourishment, like drugs or alcohol or food or sports or sex? Perhaps. Or as I said, ENFJ can cultivate her F5 shadow F5 function and would turn rather into artistic endeavors to feel better about herself, to seek internal self-worth from the inside rather than outside. And for an INFJ can try to use any to see alternatives to his chosen path. If the chosen path fails, and if the INFJ feels better about himself or herself, he can reframe his thinking or imagination into seeing the issue at hand from different perspectives, from a relatively more positive perspective, and might feel better about himself or herself, or might feel less worse. But like I said, every 2 weeks or so I hit low on gas and have this desire for SE gratification, sensory gratification, which I don't like, and I might want to quit. But I think I would need a partner, sexual partner, to be able to let go of masturbation in those times. I can go on without masturbating for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I tried quitting masturbating to porn, but I went, for instance, for about 45 or 50 days without any masturbation one time, but it's very hard. I think an ENTP female would be an ideal partner for me rather than ISTP, because as I said, ISTP would use me, abuse me, because ISTP can bring the weaker ISTP in me to my tertiary and inferior functions, and because she is a master ISTP, she can manipulate my ISTP with ease and turn me into a weaker version of herself that she can dominate. That would, even though that would be sensory-wise, that would be pleasurable for me, I don't think that would be emotionally satisfying for me in the long term. That would not be make me happy, but just it would make me feel good from time to time. So I think I would need an ENTP partner, because she could extract my NI, clogged up NI, and give it a release. And in the same sense, I think ENTPs must, because they have inferior SI function, which would mean the shadow SE, which is even weaker than their SI function, is very faint. So that would mean the ENTPs do not have any sensory impulse SE impulse, or at all, or if there is any, they are suppressing any SE impulse they may have, however weak it may be. So that would mean they do not feel any need for sensory gratification like eating, sex, sports, etc. If they feel any such impulse, they must be suppressing it in favor of any endeavors, which would mean they, for favor of following their mental passions, they must be ignoring their physical needs. And in the same sense, as I said, in the same sense that an ENTP would help me extract my internalize any ideas which are festering in me, I think I could help ENTP female to express her SE impulses which are clogged up inside her. And also our tertiary and auxiliary functions would be compatible, so we would have lots of similar interests. We would be gaining energy from the same things, so whatever we do together would be nourishing both of us, would be nourishing and enjoyable for both of us. And she would help me express my crazy ideas more, and I would help her to gain better control of her any impulses, which would allow her to be able to choose more viable options from multiple possibilities, enabling her to pursue options with better chance of success, and preventing her from wasting her time. And she would help me put my sexual impulses under control and gain some kind of sensory gratification, which all of which I guess in the long term would help both of us to lead a happy life and keep each other company. So that's all I have to say for the moment about shadow functions and SE, NSI, NNE, NI, and introverted functions being suppressed or pent up, inhibited versions of their extroverted counterparts. So thank you for listening.